Comic books have always been a world of fantasy. Heroes and villains swinging through the sky and soaring through the air, fighting country or world-ending threats. Stuff that we, for the most part, would never even fathom having to deal with. But still, we extend our span of disbelief to be able to enjoy these action-packed stories. But what if we didn't have to stretch our span of disbelief at all? What would it feel like if a superhero story put front and center a problem that hundreds of thousands of people had to actually deal with? Let's talk about 9/11. No, just kidding. No, that's been done before. We've gotten that. We've been through that. No, we're going to talk about the AIDS crisis. To give a brief history for all those unfamiliar, the AIDS crisis in the 1980s and 90s was devastating, to put it lightly. It started with so few cases and such lack of knowledge that it led to countrywide outcry. This ended up leading to a large amount of rumors, myths, and genuine panic, borderline hysteria. This hit especially hard for the LGBTQ community, specifically gay men, as they were most often to blame for being spreaders and carriers, while at the same time receiving some of the least treatment and care for those who tested positive. By the 1990s, the CDC reported over 100,000 deaths, and finally, public protest and outcry led to proper testing and treatment for those infected. Now, after that brief history lesson, let's get back to the topic at hand of how this was addressed in comic books. Alpha Flight was written by John Byrne, a British-born American comic artist, also known for writing X-Men and Fantastic Four. It told the story of a Canada-based superhero team. Their first appearance was in Uncanny X-Men issue 120 in 1979. For you real comic nerds, you'd know that this was actually the first team Wolverine was a part of, before he buddied up with Charles Xavier and company. Today we'll be looking at issue 106, given the heading North Star as You've Never Known Before. To catch you up to speed on who North Star is, aka Jean-Paul Bobier, is a Canadian-born mutant, with his powers being super speed and flight. He spent his early days as a circus acrobat, which I feel like is cheating in my opinion, for him to then later move on to being an Olympic skier. Again, cheater. He later left the life of athletic dishonesty and chose to become a member of the Canada-based superhero team Alpha Flight to protect his country. Back to issue 106. In this edition, the team are in the midst of a battle against the villain Mr. Hyde. North Star, who gets knocked into an alleyway, finds an abandoned baby girl. Rushing out of the fight to take the baby to the hospital, he's later given the heartbreaking news that the child has AIDS, most likely inherited from the child's mother. North Star, being the upstanding hero he is, takes the baby into his custody as an adoptive father. He is of course cheered on by the media for his selfless acts, and spends day and night watching over her, to the point where his companions are questioning if he's properly eating or sleeping. Suddenly, he's attacked by Major Maple Leaf, a villain who's furious that the child has been receiving so much support from the media, and claims that the world is unfair, as his son died of AIDS, as he received none of the same care, love, and attention because his son was a homosexual. Then their duel of fists finally come to a front, where North Star makes the claim that he doesn't need this explanation to him, for he himself is gay. Mind you, this was a massive reveal for a 90s comic book. Unfortunately, instead of sympathizing, Major Maple Leaf then questions North Star, asking, "You've had such a platform for so long, why have you stayed closeted? Why haven't you spoken up? If you'd spoke up for these issues, then maybe my son would still be alive. You're no better than these politicians and crooks." This actually hits kind of close, because despite the whole trying to kill a baby thing, he makes a actually really good point about how people with a platform should speak up for their own people. But at the same time, is it fair to ask of someone to out themselves for the sake of others? Still, North Star can reconcile with him that the AIDS issue must be discussed, its victims, and those left behind. This brings into question, what is it that these nations mean to protect, when they can spend billions and billions for wars, across seas, but little to none to save the people on their own soil? Unfortunately, this story couldn't have the happy ending we all dreamed of, because in the end the doctors proclaim that the child is beyond saving and will soon pass on, as North Star holds the baby in his arms for her last moments. This story hits hard, but it brings forward a lot of important discussions on things like giving platform, being open about who you are, government assistance, and the necessity of medical care for those less fortunate. We know that mutants are already an allegory for outsiders of society, so what can we take from this story told about a fictional group to comment on the world we live in?